March, and last week the South African Revenue Services gave it the go-ahead to be a public beneficiary organisation. And to tell us more about this, I'm joined in studio by YES CEO Dr. Tashmia Ismail-Saville. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
So let's start with the latest developments regarding SARS, and what does that mean for the initiative?
So the Youth Employment Service was launched, as you saw on the clip, in late March. We were still waiting on the DTI to do a government gazette, which we are thrilled to say was finally signed last week by Minister Davies, and we await the publication of the gazette. As soon as this gazette is published, we'll be able to register formally companies that will use the BE benefits in order to drive the larger numbers of jobs and kickstart us.
Could you just remind us about the YES initiative and what it was meant to achieve?
So we have this unemployment number of 6 million. It's huge. It's over a third of our youth population. And what is scary about this number is it's not a South Korean unemployed youth that has gone through a functional schooling system, etc. We have youth that are not in employment, education or training. We have 60% of our unemployed in townships. So these are young people sitting out in communities where there's very little exposure, there's very little support system, and very little idea of what careers exist out there. So the idea for the Youth Employment Service was to make a big dent, a needle mover of a national initiative which needs business across the board, from large to small business, to help give young people a first chance at a work opportunity. If they get that first chance, we in a sense de-risk them. They can get a CV, they can get a reference letter, they can get exposure. We're building a program to give YES Youth a mobile phone that will have an app-based system to give them the type of exposure that they're not going to have available in their community. And we're also building an infrastructure to try to drive that investment from companies deep into the hearts of communities, where we can give access to skills training so young people don't have to take buses and taxis, and sometimes even that is not enough to access. You have to move town to be able to access those programs. So can we bring that investment in youth future closer to where they live?
So right there, we already get into some of the contentious issues with regard to access, because access has traditionally and historically been quite a bugbear for many youth in accessing opportunities, especially. So when you talk about YES in youth, who are we talking about? How many young people are we talking about?
So we have a desire to allow youth into the program that display what we call a set of YES values. These are around integrity, commitment, we call it grit, paying it forward, but also people that will take that opportunity, go to that interview and really prove that they deserve that. So it's a growth mindset young person, but we're willing to work with young people to develop a growth mindset. How do I meet an employer halfway once I get the opportunity to go to a job interview? But to your earlier point, there are structural realities that make this a tough, messy, complicated problem to solve. We have got a history, a legacy system where investment was driven into places which already had investment. And the idea is, how do we start to take investment in youth futures closer to where young unemployed people live? And one of the ways is through physical infrastructure, but we obviously can't. So we're starting what we call YES community hubs. We launched our first one in Tembisa as a showcase of, and we're using it as an example of how we can start to build community infrastructure for youth. But we obviously can't put that in every village that exists. But with mobile phones today, we have a portal that gets you into the world of the young person and gets the young person into a world they wouldn't have had exposure to because of our past inequalities. And so we're trying to use technology, we're trying to use really new disruptive thinking on how do we shift that status quo, which, as you rightly point out, has really cut a lot of young people out.
So how many young people have you signed up, as it were, to date, and where exactly are they located?
So we have partnerships around signing youth up. Our hub in Tembisa, for example, does have a portal. Our website has a portal for youth. But there are partners like Harambee that do a great job of activating in communities, signing youth up. Harambee's database has 450,000 active youth in it. So we need to actually be building new economic opportunities and new jobs to place youth into these opportunities. So the problem isn't so much signing up youth, because there are many portals to do that. It's that once they're in that portal, where do we send them? Where are the job opportunities that are closer to home? We must also realize a lot of youth are young parents. So can we also start to build economic opportunities for these youth that are closer to where they live, closer to where their kids are? Because we've also got to try to consider restitching that social fabric around young people and their children, so we don't repeat these cycles. Now, Oxfam tells us, and many other researchers like Joe Studwell tell us that the surest way to sort of cut this spiral, this downturn spiral, is just get young people into work. So we've been spending our time working very closely with big companies on inclusive growth models. We're saying to companies, can we take your BEE investment and can we look at it as an innovation fund? So can we start to think about how you can do business deeper in the hearts of communities, building incomes at the same time that you build your business? And so this innovation work around disrupting business models is a big part of where our attention is sitting at the moment. We've got to try to shift the economic system and the economic lenses for big companies and how they see their role in society.
So how have these companies responded to that challenge, and how many of them have actually signed up to partner with you?
So we're quite excited, because when we go in, so we use a design thinking model. We go in and we do a proper workshop with executives in the company. They pull like 20 of their executives together, and we start to solve problems for communities, and then we say, well, what problems can we solve for the company at the same time? All of the big banks have signed up with us. F&B have already started recruiting for people inside of their ranks, inside of their business. But a lot of the employment opportunities that we're building, let's take Standard Bank for instance, a lot of what we're building is in their supply chain and with SMEs in communities. So around agri-hubs, around solar panels. So lots of businesses they're interested in capacitating sectors on. We find that their interest is really peaked when we start to show them the opportunities for business growth in these communities.
But, of course, the main objective is to make that dent into this unacceptably high youth unemployment number. And if we look at what the plan is here to create 1 million internships for youth, youth are disgruntled about internships and what they ultimately gain from it, given their experience in government departments and in the private sector to date. How is this going to be different?
Well, it's first the reality check is that if you look at the way businesses, high net profit businesses in the economy grow, they grow with efficiencies and algorithms. To be globally competitive, most of them don't grow with headcount. So when we talk about internships, YES talks about work opportunities rather than internships. And we are focusing deeply on the SME. If you look at any country that has grown, growth doesn't come from big companies. It comes from the SME sector. So we can't uncouple SME from employment growth. The large company investment that we're using is not necessarily in work opportunities or, as you put it, internships inside of a head office sitting in Sandton, but rather how can we facilitate that investment that they were going to pay on a wage in an SME closer to the community in a high potential growth sector. So that's where we start to see this economics work, which is about building new value chains closer to where people are.
And how do people sign up for these opportunities?
So at the moment, we're building the opportunities. You can go to our website. There's a youth portal that you can sign up to. If you sign up to Harambee, if you sign up to Chepa 1 Million, we are trying to integrate in the back end many of these youth databases to avoid the confusion that youth feel around, should I be in this database, should I be in that? What we want to say is, YES is going to find you if you sign up to any of these, because we're building MOUs with a lot of the partners that are collecting youth data. But there is a Yes portal on our website, which is at yesforyouth.co.za. But we're asking business. We're saying you can't look at one side of the equation. We're saying to SMEs, we're saying to big business, if you're a hairdresser, a beautician, a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or a JSE listed firm, we're saying to all of those businesses, open up, give, even if it's one young person, give that young person a chance to prove their abilities. There are a lot of young people out there who might not have a matric certificate even. We know 56% of youth entering the labor force each year don't even have a matric certificate. But this has got nothing to do with their competency or abilities. There are a lot of youth that just need a chance to show one employer what they can do. And Yes would like those young people to be given that chance to prove their abilities.
I'd imagine we'd have to reimagine quite a lot of this, and as you say, come at it with disruptive ways to the way things are normally done, because I'm just thinking perhaps it needs to be a case whereby the young person comes to you and with an idea, and you facilitate their access to the company that they want to speak to.
Absolutely. So this mismatch between, if you look at, I mean, you mentioned the problems with the classic internships and learnerships. It's a choice issue. When a young person takes an opportunity because there's a stipend and not because their natural abilities predispose them to being in that sector, they're not going to flourish. But if we give young people better choices, and better choices come with better exposure, can they see the range of activities that are out there for them? And this is where the disruptive approaches come in. It's not going to be possible face-to-face, Sakina. We're going to have to be able to build alternate channels to give young people exposure. And digital fourth industrial gives us some of those disruptive tools. More of the same is not going to work. More of the old learnership, internship program, it hasn't moved the needle yet. Why we assume it's going to move the needle now, I'm not sure. But we know the definition of insanity. We can't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. If we don't try to fix the economic imbalance, if we don't try to restructure where our investment goes and open all new pathways for youth, this is not going to be solved. It's messy. It's complex, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for coming through, Dr. Tasmia Ismail-Saville, and the Youth Employment Service, or YES initiative, fully functional now. So you can go to their website, www.yesforyouth, that's yes and foryouth.co.za, to find out more. And also thanks to the CEO of this initiative. And I'd love to hear from the young people, because you are going to have to be part of the solution here. So do let us know what your thoughts are. #MorningLive and our Twitter handle @MorningLive SABC.